All right, so happy Bitcoin Pizza Day, y'all. This is Blockchain Crypto Gang live. Just gonna do this quick live just to celebrate Bitcoin Pizza Day and really to show you like the real purpose of us understanding the history of Bitcoin Pizza Day. Of course, we know the actual history. Most of us do. If you don't, let's give you a quick brief history. As Bitcoin celebrates Pizza Day at 70,000 ish, from a $41 pizza to 700 million fortune. So what this is referring to in brief is on this day 2010 there was a gentleman by the name of Lasso Hanyix who made history by spending 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 Papa John pizzas, which would be worth over 700 million today. This is an actual picture of him and his kids. Some people say he made a terrible mistake. Some people say that he made a sacrifice because he showed the utility of Bitcoin. In essence, kind of. So this is the first recorded Bitcoin purchase, the first recorded time where Bitcoin was used for a transaction, even though it wasn't a direct transaction. In other words, it's not like he actually paid 10,000 Bitcoin to Papa John's personally. What he did is he went on a blog and he asked if anyone would buy him 2 pizzas and that he would give them 10,000 in Bitcoin. So whoever actually made that purchase for him really just bought 10,000 Bitcoin for about $40, which was a genius move. That means that they really understood where Bitcoin was going. And a lot of people say that, this guy fumbled the bag. A lot of people say that Lasso fumbled the bag, but I would say that he probably had more Bitcoin. Because remember, this is 2010 when, he could have got paid his next paycheck and recouped that 10,000 Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure that he's doing just well. So the event was recorded in the annals of Bitcoin Talk, where Hanyix posted about his intentions several days before the May 22nd, 2010, saying he'd pay 10,000 Bitcoin for a couple of pizzas, like maybe 2 large ones, so I have some leftover for the next day. I like having leftover pizza to nibble on later. And this was actually posted on a blog days before before somebody actually took him up on his offer. Hanyix said somebody could make it at home and deliver it. So he didn't even care. Somebody could have made the pizza at home and delivered it to him, or buy it from a pizza shop and deliver it to his home in exchange for 10,000 BTC. On May 22nd, 2010, he posted, "I just wanted to report that I successfully traded 10,000 Bitcoin for pizza." So to me, I believe that he just wanted to make a transaction happen. I don't think that it was one of those where he was down bad and he just had to, he only had 10,000 Bitcoin to his name, and I know it sounds crazy now, but at the time, 10,000 Bitcoin wasn't worth more than $40. While the purchase went largely unnoticed at the time, it now marks a key date in celebration and reflect for the crypto community, as it shows the significant increase in price that Bitcoin has experienced over the past 15 years. Bitcoin Pizza Day prices, just for retrospect. Bitcoin was at $6.12 in 2011, the year after Bitcoin Pizza Day. It was worth $5 the year after that, 123 after that, 523 in 2014, 241, so it slipped down in 2015, 439 in 2016, all the way up to 2100 in 2017. That's when that's when people really started taking notice right there, 2017. Then it went up to 8,000 2018, stayed about 8,000 2019, 9,000 2020, which was a little bit before the halving, because it was about 86,000 at the halving. So just remember, 2020, when we had the halving, Bitcoin was about 9,000, a little bit less, and it got all the way up to 70,000. So Bitcoin was over 60,000 this halving. If it followed that same trend in 8x, then yes, that's why people are saying it could get up to 500,000, which it'd be nice, but it's not nothing I would bank on. I would say 150,000 for this bull cycle would be fine with me. Anyway, 2021, it was up to 37,000 on Bitcoin Pizza Day. 2022, it was down to 30,000. 2023, 26,000. and today Bitcoin pizza day at 70,000, almost 71,000. I don't know if it's quite that high right now, but at the time of this actual article, $70,000 for Bitcoin pizza day. So why is this really significant? Because it didn't really show the utility for Bitcoin. It didn't do that. Because at the end of the day, he didn't directly purchase pizza with the Bitcoin. He went through an intermediary. He went through somebody who made the purchase for him in lieu of 10,000 Bitcoin. So at the time, the transaction was still emerging technology, mainly an object of experimentation for a handful of enthusiasts and developers. Since then, Bitcoin has proven itself the best performing financial asset of all time. The value of 10,000 Bitcoin amounted to $41 in 2010, while today's prices, it would be worth $700 million. In retrospect, that's nearly $350 million per pizza. Woo! $43.7 million per slice, as a large Papa John's pizza has 8 slices. So a lot of people are like, man, how could you do that? But listen, if we expect Bitcoin to do what it's going to do at some point, you're probably going to sell it. And if it continues the trend of going up, whatever you bought with that Bitcoin, in retrospect, is going to be worth more. I sold dozens of Ethereum when it was like $300. I still have Ethereum, but I did relinquish some Ethereum at a time when Ethereum was like $300. So it is what it is. Like, we expect these assets to go up in price as we expect the dollar to go down. I mean, it's going to happen. But let me show you this. This is like really what you should be thinking of. This is what really Bitcoin Pizza Day puts in perspective when you really think about it. It puts in perspective the fact that Bitcoin is an asset that increases in value over time, mainly because of its scarcity. Not just because of its scarcity, but mainly because of its scarcity. So when you contrast the dollar, which is losing value, right? It takes more dollars to buy the same products and services year after year, but it takes less Bitcoin. So here's an analogy: a price of a home. 2016, a home that's around $300,000, right? So we're looking at a price of a home at 288,000 in 2016, which would have been about 664 Bitcoin. Well, that same house 4 years later would have cost you 328,000. It would have only costed you 45 Bitcoin. That means that it's costing more dollars to purchase the same thing because the value of the dollar is crashing, or the house is increasing in value. However you want to put it, it's all the same. It means the value of the dollar is decreasing. We call that inflation, simply hyperinflation in extreme cases. But as you can see, the value of Bitcoin is increasing rapidly. 2024, a $434,000 house is now only 6.6 Bitcoin. So that same house in 2016 that may have costed you 288,000 will now cost you 434,000. But how many Bitcoin would it cost? 1/100th of the amount of Bitcoin it would have costed in 2016. Think about that. So, a lot of people, oh, Bitcoin is just too volatile. It's too unstable. It's not real money. No, your money is not real money. Fiat money is not real money. And I don't say that like to be facetious. I don't say that to try to just throw shade on the US dollar or the financial system, the traditional banking system. That's not why I say that. I say it because that's just how performance would dictate. There's a reason why, like, rich people, wealthy people, and I'm not of the wealth ilk as of now, but there's a reason why wealthy people don't keep their money in fiat currencies. They don't. There's a reason why they say things like cash is trash. There's a reason why Michael Saylor said people who hold their store of value in fiat currencies, there's a name for them. He said, we call them poor. There's a reason why people say you can't save your way to wealth anymore. It's because you're losing more in inflation than the bank is going to pay you to hold the money. In other words, inflation, the last numbers I checked was 8%. So that means you lose 8% at least. And those numbers are probably lowballed. But let's just say at 8%, you're losing 8% purchasing power per year. That means across the board, things are going up. Your products and services that you typically would purchase are going up by 8% a year. But you're not getting paid 8% APR to hold your money in savings, are you? You're lucky if you get a percent or two. If you use an online bank that doesn't have the expenses of a brick and mortar, then you might get 4 or 5%. You might. But typically, you're only going to get about 1/4 to 1/2%. But you're facing 8% inflation. Just think about your bills. Think about your grocery. Think about gas. Think about the products and things that you buy every day and how much you've seen them increase over the past year. If your wages haven't increased by that much, or if the percentage that you're getting paid holding your money that doesn't increase that much, that means you're literally losing purchasing power year after year. Now that's hedged by different things because we live in America and therefore we have different resources that can offset those things, or at least we have the illusion of being able to have fancy new phones and um, cars and things. So it makes it a little bit more comfortable. In some countries they don't have that. This is why, like in El Salvador or some other South American or African or Asian or some Eastern Europe nations, this is why they hold on to Bitcoin and assets, and they're making these moves because they understand that if they have a highly inflationary currency that's losing 50% of its value, well, Bitcoin's not really a risk at that point. It's not a risk to hold your money in Bitcoin, something that's been performing off the charts for the past 14 years, even though it's volatile. Well, if you know you're guaranteed losing 50% of your purchasing power every year, it makes sense to make other moves. This is why wealthy people, like I said, like they said, hold their wealth in assets. This is why banks, as I've reported a couple of videos ago, they're buying Bitcoin ETFs, not just to introduce exposure to customers. Some of them are buying them just to put on their balance sheets because in part, banks make money from investments. They invest your money. So while you put your money in savings, they take your money and they invest it. Think about that. While you put your money in savings for 1/4%, they're investing your money in endeavors that are going to yield way more than 2%. They lend your money for percentages that will lap the APR that they'll pay you to hold it. So you want to understand, you want to know why a lot of these different alphabet boys, the SECs and all that, are suing a lot of these crypto exchanges and trying to make decentralized exchanges extinct, is because they understand that if people understood and if people really got hip to the idea in massive numbers that they can stake coins on different self-custody wallets or even in exchanges for 5, 8, 20% in some cases. Well, why would you keep your money in a savings account yielding 1/4% when you can actually put it in a decentralized protocol and you can do the same thing that banks are doing? You want to borrow against your assets and reinvest it in other things? You could do that. You want to put it in a lending pool where you're guaranteed because the borrower has to use collateral to borrow it, meaning that you're not at risk of losing what you're lending. You want to put your money in a lending pool and get and stake the type of rewards that banks get when they lend your money out. You can do that. So that would mean that less people would have to deal with banks. And remember, we have a quarter of the global population that are bankless or underbanked. What if they realize, okay, well, I can't use a bank, but I can use Bitcoin? What if the people that use banks realize, hey, I don't like getting this 0.25%? My $1,000 turned into 1,025 cents. But inflation, I just lost 8%, so I lost $80 in purchasing power. That's losing. When they realize, oh, I could have put it in a stable coin and staked it for 6%. I could have maybe invested in a volatile asset like Bitcoin and probably doubled it. This is why ETF services like ETF issuers like BlackRock and Grayscale and Fidelity, et cetera, are buying up all the Bitcoin. They're not doing so because they don't believe that this is an asset that will perform good on their balance sheets. We went from 2 pizzas costing 10,000 Bitcoin in 2010 to those same 10,000 Bitcoins that would be worth 700 million. We went from an obscure blog poster almost begging someone to buy him some pizza for 10,000 Bitcoins to banks and BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, buying Bitcoin by the thousands at 50,000 a pop. Now we're 70,000, of course. So this is what must be understood for people who are really on the fence, or those of us have to keep in mind who already know what time it is. We already know what it is. Well, this is what it is. This is what keeps us going. This is what keeps hodlers focused, even when it looks bad. This is what keeps smart people from trying to day trade Bitcoin and short it and all that other stuff. This is what solidifies and strengthens our understanding and our confidence in holding an asset like Bitcoin for the long term, because we've seen what happened in just this 8 months or 8 years from this chart. This is why the rich money is going towards Bitcoins and other digital assets. And what Bitcoin did is not just introduced an asset that is peer-to-peer, that is scarce, that is deflationary in its issuance. We just had the halving last month, which is a store of value, a medium of exchange, but also it manifests the potential of blockchain technology even outside of Bitcoin. We have Ethereum, the virtual machine. We have XRP, a banker's coin that's used to transfer value across the globe, across borders in a split second. We have real world assets now coming into play, tokenization, NFTs. We have DePIN technology, blockchain based. Now we're seeing that blockchain technology in itself, even outside of Bitcoin, blockchain technology in itself is more efficient for many other industries. You have supply chain tracking being done by major corporations that you use every day, and they're using blockchain. So Bitcoin Pizza Day is more than just the fact that, hey, of course I am going to have a pizza today. I'm going to celebrate in the spirit of many other hodlers across the world. I'm going to appreciate the fact that someone did make that move to create the first purchase, just to say it happened, just to get the ball rolling. But really, it's bigger than that. It shows you a timeline of where we have come from the first Bitcoin purchase in 2010 to Bitcoin ETFs, global adoption, tokenization of assets, real world assets, decentralized finance, The fact that now that technology allows us to do things that was only once available to the very rich. Because there was a time where you couldn't even you couldn't fractionalize stocks or other assets. There was a time where you had to be uber rich in order for your money to make money for you. There was no real staking mechanism. There was no real dividend system in place for the average person. Speaking of ETFs, yeah, I own some ProShares ETFs in my Fidelity account, since my job does match my contributions. You know, I do have some Bitcoin ETFs by ProShares Strategy ETF, whatever that means. I don't know. Only thing I do know is that it does pay dividends. And yeah, I would like to hold Bitcoin on my own, but in this specific case, it makes sense for me to have these ETFs in my 401k because I can't hold Bitcoin directly, or at least not the matched contributions that my job matches for me. They just it's too volatile for them or whatever. So I found a way to maneuver. And there's a lot of other people that are taking advantage of that opportunity as well, who are using their banks or their 401k at their job to have exposure to Bitcoin, which means that the issuers of the ETFs have to buy Bitcoin. So it does go into the market cap. It does help the market grow. But a lot of people will choose that same type of a route. Not everybody wants to hold their own Bitcoin. The point is, we're at a point now where the exposure of Bitcoin is growing so rapidly. So we just had the halving, meaning less Bitcoin are being created per day, but the adoption rate is still going up. The demand is still going up. This is why it's hard to believe that Bitcoin is not going to surpass 100,000 by first quarter, maybe second quarter 2025. We have Japan's biggest pension fund now offering Bitcoin, which means regionally other countries will as well. We have ETFs all over the globe. We have whole nations that are adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender, as a means to do the exact same thing that we do on the micro level. They're doing on the macro level. They're hedging their hyperinflated dollar with Bitcoin. They're using it because of the utility of it, because now they don't have to go through money changers like Western Union MoneyGram for people to send money back into their home country at a 30% loss of revenue that should be in the country because they go to fees instead. Now, because they have legal tender, Bitcoin is legal tender, every dollar worth of Bitcoin that's used on the Lightning Network to send money to El Salvador is going right into the economy, not minus 30% for fees. This is where we're at right now, you guys. Happy Bitcoin Pizza Day. Celebrate with a pizza. Focus on your hodl. Focus on your accumulation. Don't worry about when the market dips. We know what it is. We've been through this cycle before. Well, some of us have been through this cycle before. We understand that we're going to have days of sell-off. We understand that there's manipulation that goes on a huge scale. We understand that there are still financial institutions and governments that are still kind of not even skeptical of Bitcoin. They know what it is. They just don't want the adoption of Bitcoin and other cryptos and other decentralized protocols. They don't want it to happen before they have enough products and services in place of their own. This is why you're seeing all these banks and these financial institutions buy up so much Bitcoin. They want to offer different products and services and profit from the Bitcoin and centralize the ownership and exposure of it. Understand that. Stay woke. Appreciate you guys' time. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. Peace.